Hey, everybody. I don't know where Dr. Ruth is. I hope she didn't slip and fall down or whatever, because she confirmed that she was coming. I don't know what's Harpur. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, I was watching, I don't know if you guys have watched the Netflix series Monsters, Lyle and Eric Mendez, how they unalive their parents due to the fear and control they had over them and were essayed throughout their childhood. And even though I like the Netflix series, but it makes you not know what's real and what's not, and they keep a lot of information out and everything. It was still very entertaining, but then I watched a lot of the interviews, real life interviews, and real life courts. And yeah, I would have unalived those parents too. All right. You're here. Yay. Fantastic. I didn't know if you fell down or something. I don't know.
No, I was putting a 7-year-old to bed.
Okay.
That's what I was doing.
Very good. Did you ever get that book?
I did.
Did you read it?
Bits of it.
Okay.
I'm familiar with her.
Yeah. Okay. When I was finishing it up today, and I was crying. Because it was because the ending went into, before it says how to help yourself, because the whole book is talking about all the different types of child abuse, and it goes into detail about everything and why you get these coping mechanisms, defenses, and what else? Why you lack boundaries, right? And why you have the walls that you have. Anyways, at the end, it gets into specifics about physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, and all the different levels and types. And, I don't fucking know. It's like I had some sort of, I don't know, PTSD, something, like some sort of flashbacky type something, like going on in my body or something. And just reading different things, I got really fucking depressed. It was so fucking depressing. And it took me a few days to get through these certain parts, because I would fucking cry. I would cry, not only for myself, but for what I had done, being a parent myself, And so it's showing you, in your face, like, oh, you were shitty. You did shitty stuff, like not to the extent, or I thought, the way that I was raised, right? Because I wasn't hands-on physically abusive, but it does show all the mental shit that you do and how it's going to cause your children to become, these types of, ways, right? And it's so fucking shameful, right? And anyways, so
I guess it's, it's like two things, isn't it? Because one, there's empathy in it. It's the experience of someone who is able to understand what you've been through and how it's affected you. And then there's regret if you recognize, oh, I've done some of those things.
Yeah. And I usually, like when I'm reading this, I would tell myself, I would have a conversation with myself, and I would say, you can shut off these feelings. I would tell myself that. I'm like, you don't have to fucking feel nothing right now. You cannot let yourself feel these things. And like a light switch, just shut that off and just read it. Almost like separate yourself from it. I'm telling myself this, you can do that. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to feel this shitty stuff. I'm supposed to. And I'm telling myself, you're not weak.
No, it's courageous. Because if you can acknowledge what you've been through.
Yes.
And your own experiences, that's so key to changing the effects of how they lead you to behave in the present.
Yes.
But it also is a real opportunity if you're able to recognize how your behaviors may have hurt other people. Well, that's an opportunity to make amends if they're receptive to it, because if you can acknowledge it.
Well, I don't think I would be able to call up my kids and say shit, to tell you the truth, at this point in time,
Maybe not yet.
It would almost feel like some sort of Hoover, some sort of like, because, this is just a realization at this point. It's not I've changed anything, right?
And I think those kind of apologies and making amends, they kind of have to, there has to be a degree of I don't know the word, receptiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just call someone out of the blue and be like, oh, hi, I'm ready to tell you all the things I've ever done wrong. Now you forgive me, but if the opportunity arises,
yes,
and be more open to it.
Yes. I also don't want, I don't feel, oh God, I don't want to cry, dude, but maybe I don't feel like I deserve forgiveness. Does that make sense?
But isn't that the nature of forgiveness? If you deserve it, you don't really need it.
I don't know, Dr. Ruth. That's why I fucking messaged you, because I'm all fucked up. Anyway, and reading about these, because it's not all just about me. I mean, I reached out to you because I'm all fucked up, of course. That's about me. But I'm like, this stuff is so just important for other people to understand. Not just people like me, but what they're dealing with or what they went through too. Why, they're reliving their past through people like me. And the people that I pick remind me of my childhood too, right? So, it's not like, oh, I just want to go and pick on the weak bird, as a partner type thing. It's like, I'm also reliving, the abusive shit that I went through too. I wrote down something in my journal. We'll get into all I just want to okay. Anyways, I wrote this down today. Okay. This is how I felt today. I said, I'm supposed to be the caregiver of men. I can't allow to be seen as needing emotional care from anyone. I can't need anyone. This may be why I couldn't emotionally care for my daughter. I think it was maybe projection, of this feeling that I have, about myself. And then she's a girl. And that's why I couldn't connect with her or I was more hard on her to be tough like me type thing.
Yeah, because if you're not tough and you let someone see your weakness, then what does that mean?
Right. Yes. And it was completely unconscious. I don't fucking know what I'm doing. I'm just thinking that I'm giving the bare minimum needs of everybody. when I'm supposed to, but I was extra like listening and understanding, when it came to my boys, but not with my partner. Okay. So I'm very fucking dysfunctional when it comes to my children. Okay. I don't give a fuck about my partners. Okay. Anyway, so I said, if I allowed a man to care for me, I would have given my power away. They would have the power to hurt me. Then I punish them for not caring. And I pick these men to feel safe. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Because you feel safe because they're not gonna, they don't see your vulnerability. That's what allows you to feel safe.
Yes.
You don't see my weakness. I just act like some, I don't know, cold, super strong.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it feels very normal for me. So it's not like, this is just a massive revelation, to me, this thing. I'm like, what the fuck? And
on the other side, they're also doing something.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, well, just like with all this, the defenses and everything, it's like I can, why I'm so justified in my behaviors, towards them, punishing them because they're not who I think they should be. But also I pick them to be this way, So it's like I wanted the poison, and then I'm getting pissed off that I purchased it my fucking self, and then I want it to be some miracle fucking thing to whatever. I don't fucking know. This whole thing is fucking very heavy. It's very fucking heavy. And then not only, me going through this, but still all over social media, you have the us versus them and the demonizing shit. And they don't understand that we are so much alike at the core. Yeah. But we present different, but the core is so fucking the same. Oh God. And it's like, and they're like, stop victim blaming. I'm like, you fuck, I am the original victim, you fucker, but they are too, but
everyone has experience. And I think when it gets into a competition of who's the biggest victim, that's never going to end well.
Yes.
And that's not to say that some people have not experienced really hurtful, abusive behaviors, and it's not reciprocal. It's not a both way thing. And I think that's one of the things that's sometimes misunderstood about understanding it as this kind of symbiotic relationship, is like, it's almost like you're saying they're both equally responsible, but it's like, no, not quite, but there is a dynamic between two people.
Yes.
That creates something between them that can be pretty toxic for both of them.
Right. I think that, because it's not all black and white relationships, that's why I say all of my relationships have been different, because all my dudes have a different personality too, and what they bring to the table. And then there's, the dudes that you friend zone that are codependent, or very presenting of the, love me. And then, me, I'm just like, oh, attention, but I'm never going to fucking give you anything, And so that's me being very dismissive of them, using them. But, there's underlying issues that I'm not even aware of why I'm doing these fucking things. I just know what feels good for me, what I'm getting out of it,
And the same on the other side. Because on the other side, there's probably someone who is trying to win over a cold and critical person.
Yes.
Or they're trying to rescue someone, or they're trying to prove that they can take good enough care of someone, or that they can be the person that makes the narcissist change.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
that's a grandiose fantasy if ever there was one.
yeah, even,
You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
most, when I talk to a bunch of people and their relationships, and you know how they just blanket statement narcissist, narcissist, right? And somebody will have more, well, like, uh, I've listened to podcasts where they talk about codependency and
Mhm.
how a lot of these behaviors can look like CPTSD,
Mhm.
the defenses a child has from CPTSD. And it also looks like borderline personality disorder too. And so a lot of, everybody's labeling everybody with a personality disorder when it actually could be this, it's just they're so fucking, everybody's unaware. And then everybody's like, one person can be just completely destructive, and then the other one is trying to come in and be more controlling and try to, if you just do what I say, if you just stop treating or stop doing this with your life or stop whatever, and that's the codependent doing that fucking shit too, being very domineering,
Mhm.
in the relationship, male or female. And then that's causing somebody like me to be like, get the fuck away from me. It's very smothering, very change for me. I'm doing the same thing to other people, but it's like, I'm telling them what to do too, but we're both telling each other what to do. You know, we both have a different perspective on the relationship as well, and I can be very abrasive and not give a shit about your feelings. Your feelings don't even fucking matter to me. So I can come off, not come off. I am very, abrasive, very abrasive. And then if you tell me your feelings are hurt, I think you're a pussy, because I can't
Well, yeah,
be.
because the alternative to that is I've behaved in a hurtful way, and I
Yes.
have to take responsibility for that, and I have to understand where the other person is coming from and apologize.
Well, I think, see, that one thing is when I showed those same behaviors when I was a kid, I was looked at as disgusting for having feelings.
Mhm.
So for me, it's not, it's, I don't even think about taking responsibility because I feel justified in my behaviors. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's not even
No,
anywhere
it's
on the
not.
chalkboard. It's, I get the feeling of when I was a kid of having feelings is disgusting. You were shamed to have feelings, and then I'm projecting that feeling of my childhood onto them. And I'm like, you're disgusting, because I don't want to feel that feeling from back then. So I'm telling, get the fuck away from me. All my shit is avoid it. Get away from me. I need to avoid my
Mhm.
feelings.
Yeah, but it is, and if you haven't had the experience of your feelings being accepted and being empathized with, and then you haven't got the, it's not in, because I don't think you can learn this stuff out of a book because it gets very, it's too rule driven. You can't just say, here's your instruction manual. You kind of have to experience it
Oh,
in
yeah.
that
Oh,
situation,
shit,
do
yeah.
it with someone else. That's kind of how therapy works, because you have the experience of someone empathizing with you, not
Yeah.
being disgusted by your feelings, being open to your feelings, then hopefully that begins to help you replay that with other people where you can be more open to your own feelings, not be so, oh shit, get this disgusting feeling shit away from me when someone else has a feeling.
Yeah. Well,
Everyone a pussy.
I think, well, that's why, like, after learning about my stuff and I became a lot more enabling codependent. on my last relationship, because I was trying to go from being really abrasive and swinging the whole other way and being more understanding, which means I'm going to get walked on and I'm going to be like, oh, it's okay because I don't want to kill you right now. I'm not going to kill you. So you can be a fucking asshole, or you can be a dick, or you can whatever, you know.
There's still a denial of your feelings there.
Yeah.
I mean, the response is different. You've gone from being what F you, don't be such a pussy, to
Yeah.
okay, I'm not gonna kill you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna kill you for, I don't know. It's very difficult. I'm trying to take, instead of lashing out, where that's what I would do. I would take space, go for a walk maybe,
Mm.
let it process, because sometimes my anger has to cycle,
Yeah.
and then I can come back to rational thinking type thing. And it doesn't happen all the time, God help the people who mood swings all the time, it's just when that happens, every
Mm.
once in a while. But I am a great enabler. I'm a
Mm.
great enabler, and I think that maybe it's because I want to be enabled. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I will tolerate you doing what? So your partner's doing what? What are you enabling?
Well, like maybe drinking, like heavy drinking or whatever, and then I'm not going to tell them not to drink because I don't want them to tell me not to drink, you know?
Although I kind I'm not sure what the healthy thing is always to do, because I think when you get into that kind of dynamic where you go and say, I mean, it doesn't work, where you go and say to someone, you drink too much, don't drink so much, your drinking's bad for you, your drinking's a problem. I mean, has that ever worked?
No.
Right. But I guess where maybe sometimes I think the enabling comes in is where someone's drinking or other, I mean, and the thing is, the term codependency, I think someone asked in the chat, the term codependency originally was co-addicted because it came out of the kind of addictions people. So
Mhm.
it was kind of like you had the person who was addicted to something and they saw the people close to them as co-addicted. So even if they weren't using the substance, they were enabling the addiction. But I think one of the things that you can't necessarily stop someone change, but it's like not protecting yourself from the impact of their behavior.
Well,
So it's like the person who stays despite this person who's drinking or substance use leads them to be violent, or leads them to be verbally aggressive, or leads them to be sexually inappropriate, or and where it really is eroding the relationship. And it's like, I'll nag you, I'll tell you off, I'll scold you, but I won't actually take action to deal with the impact of this on me, or to deal with the impact of this on other family members, like our kids.
when when I was married, it was so, like, my relationship with my husband is so different than it was with my past person. So enabling my past person, or allowing myself to be enabled or whatever, it was almost like I did not want him to get better because he would be better than me. Does that make sense? Like I wanted him to be, um because if I'm this, I don't like to use the word broken, but if I'm this broken thing, um the more broken he is, he'll be with me together in our brokenness together, and then I won't feel inferior. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if he gets well, it would mean if the other person gets better, what does
What
that
would it
do to
mean?
you? And because if, like for some people, I don't think it's what you're doing, but for some, because it's almost for you, it almost seems like status driven. That we have to be equal in the fucked upness department. Otherwise, I'm going to feel inferior. So let's be
Or
broken
you
together.
leave me because you're going to see how shit I am. You're
Yeah.
going to see that I am not this great person that I am presenting.
Yeah.
But
But for some, it's like there's this rescue fantasy
yes,
that I will love you enough, I will care for you enough, I will be patient with you, I will understand your every feeling, I will never abandon you.
I was doing that too, dude. I was doing that too.
Yeah, but actually, that's an attempt to earn love,
Yes.
and it's fundamentally it doesn't have enough self-protection or self-preservation where you say, yeah, I love you, but I'm not going to let you hurt me.
Yeah.
Those are different things.
Yeah. That's what we have to learn. That's our boundary that we have to learn. Yeah. So in the book, it says there's two different kinds of boundaries, external with our body, right? And then uh, internal with our feelings and our thoughts. And so like we know what external, and when we're young, and then people encroach on our boundaries, and this is how children can get sexually abused as such, or parents forcing them to, hug relatives they don't want to fucking hug, and then it shames the parent, and so the parent has to shame the kid to get them to fucking hug the grandma or what the fuck ever. But the internal boundaries. So that could also like when, correct me if I'm wrong, like say somebody is very hypersensitive to their partner's shifts of behavior or emotions or their way, or their basically mind reading or body language reading or something. And then they're taking upon themselves to have to make the environment better or to change or make them feel better, because they're so uncomfortable with the emotions of other people, right? So like
someone who's learned to be really vigilant about someone else's behavior. So the child of someone who's got problems with alcohol learns, let me see what my parent is doing right now. Is it a good day or a bad day? Do I need to make myself scarce? Do I need to comfort them? How do I manage their feelings? So there is that kind of hyper attunement to the other person and to their moods.
yeah.
And also it's like it's a lack. It's really interesting because I think the way if you go on social media and you look at boundaries are kind of like assert your boundaries, tell people no, set the rules. And I'm like, I don't think that's really a helpful way to think about boundaries in adult relationships, because I think they're more organic. They're like living, breathing relational experiences. It's like, how do my emotions and your emotions interact with each other? And it's being able to keep out enough so you're not taking in someone else's crap, but also you're not spewing out your own crap onto them. And you're able to kind of keep enough openness, but also enough closeness. It's like skin. You let stuff out, but you also can take stuff in.
Yeah. So you have to learn to let other people feel their feelings.
Yeah.
Without trying to fix them. This is something I did with my children.
Yeah.
So it would be if they were not happy or what, and it had no, I'm not going to say that. Because with Mikey, sometimes he'll have a mood flux and then he'll be upset and then he'll project it out to me when I just, want to ask him a question or say, hey, I haven't seen you all day. I'm just checking it, and then if he's deep in thought or whatever, he's pissed because I interrupted that thought process. And then I feel like I over-explain myself to calm his feeling that he has towards me. Like, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just, checking up on you and blah, blah, blah. And, there's a lot of anxiety involved because I do not want this person to think that I'm shit. So I'm trying to over explain my, what I'm doing.
Because you don't want him to be pissed at you.
Yeah.
Basically.
And instead of, just saying my thing and then, okay, you feel pissed and I'm going to go because I know that it's not me.
I think you do. I think actually to be a good parent, you have to learn how to accept that your kid will have negative emotions towards you. Sometimes they will feel pissed at you because you got to set the rules. My kid gets pissed at me all the time.
Yeah.
For outrageous things like saying, yes, you do have to go to bed.
Yeah. No,
you've already had 3 cookies. That's
with my daughter, she would say something like, I hate you. And I'd say, I don't care, So I was more, like that with her. And if my sons would say that, I would be like, how do I fix it? What do you mean, bro? And that's my relation with, it's very codependent, with my boys,
It's interesting, the difference between the boys and the girls.
Yeah. And
it's almost like with one, you need to be able to let the girl's emotion in more to understand, why are you so angry at me? Why are you pissed at me? Maybe you have a point. Maybe I should validate where you're coming from. Maybe there's something I should support you with. So there's a need to almost open your boundaries more. But then with the boys, there's maybe a need to be able to be like, yeah, you can be pissed at me. It's fine.
Yeah.
Our relationship can cope with that.
Yeah. I think it's because, maybe that growing up with my mother and my sister, so it's just women, and then the dad takes off. So now I need to be overly for the boys in my life, but
you're not so worried about the
I wasn't like that with my husbands. I was not like that with my husband. I didn't give a fuck, I didn't care. I was very dismissive,
But they've got close that you no longer worry about them abandoning you.
Yes.
But actually now they might engulf you.
Well,
but you see the difference? It's like they're close enough for you to start worrying about being consumed by them.
My kids or dudes?
Dudes.
Yes, I want to stop that. I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel.
Provoking feelings, and you don't like the feelings because you got punished for having feelings.
I don't want to. Because if I feel that, like I wrote today, if I feel that if I rely on somebody, and my whole life, you get backstabbed by these people.
Yeah, so dependence is a threat.
Yes.
Dependence is danger.
I'm going to be, and not only will I be mad at myself that I was, tried to trust somebody who betrayed me in some way. And then, if I'm disrespected or betrayed, then I go for the jugular, how dare you?
You're not gonna.
How dare you?
No, because you're not gonna let them make you look like a wimp.
Yeah. So our parents teach us our boundaries, or because if they encroach on our boundaries all the time, they don't listen to us. or you don't listen to your kid or whatever, like you said, the emotions of, daughters, um, that, that they're going that I don't fucking know where I'm going with this. If they don't have any boundaries, if you're always like, okay, so in my house, the way that my ex-husband was raised was, this is my house. You have no boundaries whatsoever. And I can encroach on your space, your feelings, your everything. And you have to walk on eggshells around dad, you know? And so that's what my ex-husband was trying to instill in our household. But then I would always fight him, with that. It's like, why do you have to be such a fucking asshole? Why do you have to, why is this such a big deal if they come into our room? We're not doing anything, and come and talk to us. He wanted them to ask permission to just walk in, even if the door was open, like have these rigid ass rules. And so I would be like, no. So I'm fighting with him all the time over that fucking shit. But then my son, he had to tell me, he's like, can you knock on the door before you come in? Because boys are going to do boy sexy timey things, right? Or whatever. And, can you knock on the door instead of just coming in? So he was teaching me boundaries, but he was telling me to also do that with Mikey. Don't fucking just knock on his door and make sure, he was almost being the parent and teaching me what boundaries are, for them,
Really?
and so, and because he's the golden child and shit, and it's like, I feel all shitty that he's reprimanding me, so I'm not like being a dick to him. Like, don't tell me what to do. I'm just like, oh, okay. I didn't know. I grew up with my mom just jumping in the shower with me. I'm in high school and she'd just jump in the shower with me to save water or whatever before taking a shower. There was just nothing, no boundaries at all. It was just like, I do what I want. I can say whatever I want to.
Things that they get normalized in your own home.
Yeah.
I watched an amazing interview with Esther Perel. You must have heard of her.
Oh, of course, Evercards.
Yeah. But she gave an interview because she was the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors.
Oh God.
And she said parents would talk about the people they knew who had died in the camps. And they would be like, yeah, that one was they'd be playing cards and they'd be saying, oh, do you remember so-and-so? Gassed. Oh, what about so-and-so? Hung. Oh, executed. And it was very casual. And then she said that it was later on, she had her own kids. And her kid was really upset by something. She's like, what's the problem? Her husband was like, you may not want to talk so openly about death and violence in front of our child.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like her husband was like, you need to consider child development a bit more here.
Yeah. I think.
And she was like, oh yeah, of course. So it's like, we all do it. We all have the things we consider to be normal.
Yes.
And what you consider and what you're not afraid of, and then what you will do. Like, I can tell you, really, it's an amusing story because I grew up in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. So I was terrorist attacks, bomb threats, bomb scares. That was normal for me. And then after 9/11, I was in Canterbury, which is like a nice small town in the south of England, which has a very famous cathedral. And someone put white powder around the cathedral. And there was an anthrax scare. And it was like, oh no, Canterbury's being attacked by terrorists. There's anthrax. And I'm like, you guys are stupid. There's fucking anthrax in the cathedral. Don't be ridiculous. What are you doing? Do not let yourself live in this kind of fear of terrorists. You just go about your life. And they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm finding out when the shops are reopening because no one's going to be there. So I'm going to go while it's empty. Great. And it's just not normal. We take what we know and we assume it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's kind of like you might just want to be a little more aware of it and maybe have understanding that other people may not have that shared experience that you have.
Yeah, it sounds like my whole life when I like just talking about abusive things that other people haven't gone through.
Yeah.
And then they're like looking at you like, what the fuck? And you're just like, what? you know?
But
Yeah.
I think it also is why sometimes when you get into a relationship with someone who is healthier, who doesn't have those kind of issues, it doesn't feel like home. It feels like a foreign country. And you're like, I don't know what to do here. This is kind of awkward. Like, what are the customs? What's the social etiquettes? It really feels like that. And if you feel out of place. So actually, it's one of the problems is that someone who reminds you of home feels like home.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's more comfortable to stay in the environment that's not good for you, actually.
Yeah. I was watching this, I was watching Tim Fletcher last night, and he was talking about people who crave chaos, and they don't, it's a unconscious thing, to some, like, but because they're either causing all this chaos, themselves, because it's their normal, because they grew up in this environment. So they're either causing it, and then if they get bored in the relationship because it's calm, they have to create
Chaos.
chaos, so they can feel normal, and then they end up sabotaging the relationship, of course. And I noticed that after being in a relationship with a borderline who has to have chaos all the time, I brought some of that essence into the next relationship, where, because everything would be going good and everything, and then I felt, like this isn't normal, because I'm so used to being on edge all the time with the other fuck, right? And so I was just like, so I know a couple times I had created, an actual event.
Yeah.
And I saw that he was doing that too. After I was out of it, I saw that he was creating chaotic events too, because everything would be totally fucking fine. And then he would be holding me, and then he would say, I'm breaking up with you. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then that I had this reaction to, I can't believe you would fucking say something like that to me when everything is going good. And I would end up leaving and going home, not saying I'm just like, that's fucked up to say, but it is, you're too comfortable. And so you have to sabotage, what's going, that comfort. And and then there's the whole thing where some people are like, you don't love me unless, no, I'm sorry. The, after you have a chaotic event, then you have that big makeup event.
Big makeup, which feels really good.
Yes.
And if you have stability, you don't get those big makeup sessions.
Yes. But the only thing that sucks is you have to go through all that pain, but that pain, I don't want to say that it feels good. That pain doesn't feel good, but it feels normal.
It feels home.
Yeah.
It's like me. Like, weirdly, I'm not freaked out when there's a bomb scare. I see it as an inconvenience.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. Or like I'll be watching social media and they're talking about World War III and an asteroid coming and all this other shit. And I'm just like, I just scroll. I'm like, I don't fucking care. It's like, there's nothing I can do. So why am I going to punish myself with anxiety over something I have no control over?
That's not necessarily a bad strategy for that stuff,
Yeah.
because if you can't do much about it yourself, there's not a lot to be gained from thinking about it and emoting about it.
Yeah, I think that I learned that from reading self-help books and stuff, like emotional regulation type things.
That's good
Because
for that stuff. It's not so good when you're seeing something chaotic or unsafe or alarming in someone close.
well,
Oh,
once
look, my partner's drunk again. He's passed out again. I won't do anything. And it's incredible sometimes as well what people can ignore. Like when you look back, sometimes I find it's really awful when people discover an infidelity and then they realize this has been going on and I've
Mhm.
ignored signs. And why did I ignore the signs? Well, because the signs were so threatening, you didn't want to look.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
pretty,
look,
pretty
some people are really good at being deceptive and hiding things, right? So I'm not saying, if you had an affair, then it's your fault for missing it, because it's not at all. But sometimes someone can be having an affair or doing something, and you're ignoring the signs because you don't want to deal with the fallout of addressing it.
Yeah, I never was like on high alert or afraid of anybody stepping out on me. I don't know if that's just my grandiose thinking, like, who the fuck would cheat on me? Hello. So, I never was worried. And even if they were, I would always think that, well, also, I'm better than this person, so you're just playing with fucking garbage. So whatever, The only thing that would piss me off is the lie and disrespect, but not like I would never compare myself to the third party type thing. That's just going off someplace else, but it's just like or like oh shit. I burnt myself on the curling iron the other day.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Well, that looks
it's
grim.
not. It's not. I just rubbed off the scab, but still have a nice scar. But I saw a dead body, once I was driving, and it didn't fucking bother me. I thought that was cool as shit. I'm seeing this dead body hang out, and all these people. It was before the ambulance came, and all these people are standing around and stuff. And I'm just like, and they're not doing anything. They're like waiting for the ambulance, and this fucking dead body's hanging out of a car. And I'm driving, and I'm like, I wonder if they're thinking like, oh, that could have been my family member, or that could have, and I wasn't connecting to that feeling. Like I didn't say, oh, that could have been my child, or that could have been whatever. I was just like, oh, this is interesting, and just totally fucking dead inside as I'm driving by this thing. Yeah. So yeah, we all have different reactions to different shit, and we only perceive that other. Do we perceive that other people should think the way that we do?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
And that's really, I don't think it's so impossible to say anything general that's true of everyone, because nothing is true of everyone, right? So yes, some people do think that other people will think the way that they do, and it's a great revelation to them that they don't.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent we all will have that experience at some point where we realize that someone else sees the same situation in a completely different way than we do. So, and I think that's actually a really interesting thing if you're able to be open to it and want to understand another perspective. That's really fun to do in a relationship.
Yeah.
It can be really enlivening. But yeah, and you can assume, and I think the other thing is, like, if you're very, if you don't have such a high opinion of yourself, you will imagine that other people don't have such a high opinion of you. Or that they will only have, I know this does not apply to you, or or that, or you can only tolerate it if they only see your best parts, because you can't tolerate them not having a high opinion of you.
Well, that's one thing that I am okay. Like, in the beginning of a relationship, I want them to only see the good parts, about me. But as time goes on, they have to have some sort of fear, with me too. And that's a protection thing where it's like, you have to be afraid to anger me or disrespect me or think that you can behave in a certain way around me. And that's me being controlling too, over them feeling their feelings or, whatever, or being able to discuss with them their perspective over things or whatever. I just put the fear hammer down, basically. I'm either going to shit all over you and not care, because I don't care about your feelings. So I can shit on you. And no matter what you say back to me, if you're being disrespectful, I can go low. And so we're like going low and everything until I'm just like, okay, I'm fucking done with you. And I don't care, and then they're like, wait, what? But
or the person who feels like they've got to earn love, and that if you are angry with them, it's their fault, and that they've got to somehow prove themselves to you, and so they will fight very hard to keep you, and not say, actually, if you're going to be like that, piss off.
Do you think that maybe I activate codependency stuff in my people because I do that, and then they're doing the mind reading thing, or they're worried about my different mood? Because my ex-husband would be so hypersensitive to when my mood would just be flat.
Yeah, because then he's like, okay, what's happening?
Yeah. Because like if I would be cooking or whatever, and I would always tell him to because he always like, attention, give me attention, like a little dog, give me attention. And I'm like, get the fuck out of the kitchen while I'm cooking. Do I have to get fucking police tape? Can you give me a break? And then, because he doesn't fucking listen, I would wear headphones to be like, I'm listening to music, to let him know. Is that passive aggressive? Because he's not fucking listening.
It sounds like, look, I don't know him and I haven't met him, but it sounds like he has a need for like, love me, attend to me. And to him, when you're off doing something else, cooking or whatever, that's him feeling a bit abandoned or a bit neglected. So he then goes and he's like, oh, I'm going to poke you a little bit to get your attention.
Yes.
And then you don't like neediness.
Right.
So you're like,
yeah,
I'm going to cut you down to size. I'm going to put my headphones on and make sure. And then you're there with your headphones on and he's like, hey.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I would take out a headphone and look at him like, you're bothering me. What the, and that's mean too, but
mean, right?
It makes me anxious. It gives me anxiety when somebody is smothering the shit out of me. Yeah. But on the flip side, see, this is why I say, because of my past, intermittent, shit with my dude, I want to know that you care that I'm around, but then I want you to do your own fucking thing. And then when you're doing your own thing, I'm noticing you're not around. So then I'm going to pay attention to you. And then it just keeps doing that back and forth. And then I'm happy.
Yeah, but that's what, like, do you see the dynamic where actually, and this is where I think you have to understand that there's a relational element to this. It's not like, here's a box, there's the narcissist and there's the codependent, and they don't kind of exist independently of each other. So you have the narcissist, I don't like the terms, but anyway, you have the narcissist is like, or the avoidant, actually. I want my space. I don't want to be encroached on. Don't bring your needs to me, because then you're going to engulf me, and I don't want to be engulfed by you. So I'm going to get anxious if you have needs, and I'm going to tell you where to go, right?
Yes.
And then you tell them where to go, and then they're like, I feel abandoned. I feel alone. I want to be close to someone, so I'm going to work even harder to try to get their attention. And it's a never-ending loop.
Yes.
So actually my advice to the person who's doing the constantly goading you, like pushing, like let them go, because they'll come back. And there's research on this actually, that when someone who's got an avoidant attachment style is with someone who's secure enough to give them space, they actually get less avoidant in their attachment style. They're actually much more able to be receptive and open to their partners. So it can happen, but that's not to blame the more needy person, because they feed each other. But also, I think if you are someone who is better at being available to your partner becomes less needy.
Yes. Well, that's why if my partner pulls away, I fucking notice. And so I'd get my fill or whatever,
Yeah.
and then I'd be okay again, get my fill, and then I'm cool. Or but then there's times when it's like I see that they're like pouty and shit, and then I'm making myself go and give them a little bit of affection or whatever, just to get them regulated again. So I'm regulating their emotions so they'll leave me alone. And
it's not particularly attuned to them, because it's not like, hey, why are you pouty? Are you okay? What's going on? What's your internal experience? It's pouty. That has bad consequences for me. Let me do something so your emotion is better for me. That's different.
Or if I get pissed off because of the pout, which I have before too, and then I'll be like, what's your fucking problem? Because I'm thinking that you're getting pissed off or pouting because of me. So to defend myself would be to get me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually in here too. Talking about walls, that people who use a wall of anger give off the message of, if you come near me, I'm going to get pissed off. So, and if you come near me with your emotions, or if you are, just putting an air of you having an emotion that I don't like, I'm going to get angry.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot in these types of relationships,
It does, but it's also, it's a lack, it's the emotional states are almost too fused. It's like you not being able to let your partner have their own emotional experience and see it as distinct from you.
So what would you do with the powder? That's manipulative, Dr. Ruth.
Why are you pouting? Well, that you interpret it as manipulative. Maybe
it is. He's pouting.
You can use pouting as manipulation, right?
Yes, that's what you do as kids. I'm withdrawing my love from my parent until they notice and they give me what I want, and then I'll love them again. It's manipulative kids do that shit too.
You don't have to give someone what they want because they pout. You can say, what's with these vibes? What's with this energy?
Yeah, but I know, but then they're not always honest either. They're not going to fucking be vulnerable and be like, well, it's because we're not spending time together. Because I also think if somebody said that to me, I would probably say something dismissive, like about, that, like, you always want, blah, you never give me a minute. And you use those.
And that works well. So they really stop pouting then, don't they? No, yeah. You also, but look, this is two people who are both using their child coping strategies in their adult relationships. One is pouting and trying to get your attention, which is not very invitational. I always will say to people, like, do you want to give your partner an invite, an invitation?
Oh, yeah.
Or a lecture, right? Because if you say to partner something like, You know what? We haven't seen much of each other in the last few weeks. We've just both been so busy. It would be great if we could make a little time this weekend and have a date, or make some time when the kids go to bed. We're gonna spend some time together, whatever form that takes, right?
Mhm.
That's an invitation. And it's also a really interesting test, because the person's response to that, if it is like, oh, really, that's too much, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
That's a message. You listen to what they're saying, right?
Yes.
But if your response is, you never spend time with me, I'm so alone, that's not much of an invitation.
Right. I'd be like, get a fucking hobby.
But how would you respond if they said, gosh, I haven't seen much of you this week, we should make some time together this weekend?
Well, I did have a point in time where I read a marriage book
Mm,
that his needs, her needs, how to prevent or how to have a fair proof marriage.
mm,
And one of the needs in there was quality time, you know,
mm,
and um, and that wasn't mine, but it was in the women's side, but that was his, you know. So I was like, okay, when you come home from work, we don't touch our phones, and everything is just family, you know, no distractions type thing. And then that worked. But I had to, you know, read
mm,
it from a third party, not have him tell me, because then I'd feel controlled.
mhm.
So I actually had to be like, okay, something's not working.
That makes
I
sense.
need
I
to,
can see that.
yeah, I need to read that. Well, because my mother gave me this book when we first got married, you know, like, read this so you don't have a shit relationship, you know, and stuff like that or whatever. And then when we were having conflict, you know, 15 years later or whatever, I'm like, well, maybe I should reread the book, you know, and see what the fuck.
Have you read Terry Real? His
Huh?
new book. Have you read Us?
It's called Us?
Mhm.
No.
You should read it.
Okay.
He actually knows Pia Melody. I think Pia Melody was his Pia Melody's the one who wrote the codependency stuff.
Hmm.
I think they know each other. I think she was his mentor.
Ooh, cool. Okay.
So
You got
you
that,
might find some
people?
of his stuff really interesting.
Um, okay, so another wall is a wall of fear and retreating from others. So you will just shut down, you know. So and people will call that stonewalling, but you know, so they'll shut down because they can't talk and express. Now, these things can shift as well, because I know I have done that before, to where I'm not going to fucking talk. Like if I'm talking to a difficult person or my mother or something, it's like, what's the point? I've seen my daughter do this to me too. So it's like, I'm just going to shut down and not fucking discuss and just want to get away from you type thing, you
Mhm.
know? Just, okay. Um, and then, what's another one? What's the, why can't I see the other ones? There's a wall of words where I was talking about we're over explaining and
Yeah.
stuff. Or talking over you. Oh, that's the lecturing. The lecturing. That's a wall. The lecturing.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I think the thing is with all of these things, and I think it's one of the issues, like when you take stuff from these books totally out of context, and it's like, see, is a stonewaller. Oh, they're lecturing. You actually don't realize what's behind it. So the person who's stonewalling and the person who's lecturing, underneath, they're both feeling totally overwhelmed. And one
Yeah.
is kind of shutting down and giving up, and one is trying to seize control and give instructions.
Yes.
But they're both completely overwhelmed by whatever is going on in the relationship they're in.
Yes. And then you have, well, because the other person, the just shutting down totally, you know, and it's the other person won't shut the fuck up, or they're being really, controlling to me.
Yeah.
They're trying to change my mind or make me think a certain way, which is probably their perspective, but they're pushing it on me. You have to see my perspective. And I mean, it's healthy, of course, to see other people's perspectives and stuff, but they're saying that my way is the only way. So they're not even seeing my fucking side. They're only seeing their side. And then we're both not communicating, because it's, you have to agree with me. You don't agree with me, I'm shutting down. Well, I'm going to just keep talking until you agree with me. And then, it's a competition.
But it's that figure of 8 cycle in a relationship where one gets overwhelmed, shuts down, goes quiet. That's threatening to the other person, because they're like, why are you so quiet? Why are you not attending to me? You don't give a shit about me. You don't care. You're never going to be what I need. I'm going to tell you what you need to do to solve this relationship. I'm going to lecture you, which leaves the other person thinking, I'm failing. I'm never going to be good enough. I can't possibly have a relationship. They will stonewall, and it will go round and round. And both of them are just playing out their underlying anxieties.
Yeah. And just to admit, I've been the lecturer. Okay. I've lectured motherfucks to death too. So I don't just.
We can all do all of these things at some point. I may have done a little lecturing myself on occasion. I can tell you, it's never worked.
Yeah. There's a fucking, oh, wait. Fear, silence, words. Okay. Yeah. And then you can go from, which was really interesting, you can go from having this protective wall that you use to defend to having no boundaries at all, which was really fucking interesting. Let me see. The exposed codependent experiences this pain and quickly retreats again to whatever walls give protection. The sad thing about walls is that although they give solid protection, they do not allow for intimacy and leave the codependent even more isolated and lonely. And okay. Moving from walls to non-existent boundaries and back again usually happens first when a codependent who uses walls risks coming out from behind the wall and being vulnerable. So you'll see this too, like when the difficult person with the walls does share, but then, they feel that it's going to be used against them or something, right? And then they'll retreat back into having those wall defenses, because not having boundaries is painful. I'm exposed. That's, I'm being vulnerable right now. And then if you don't behave in a certain way when I'm being vulnerable with you, if you have any fucking criticism, then I'm shutting down again, or I'm crawling back into my, protective space. Or I'm going to get angry with you. It's kind of like letting people feel their feelings, I guess.
Yeah, you have to be able to tolerate the other person having feelings towards you.
Yes.
And not be shaken by it, actually.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I know. But none of us like it, But it's like, it's one of those things as well. Like, I know, like, when I'm working in therapy and a patient's pissed off with me, right? You kind of have to be robust enough to take it and not jump to defending yourself. Well, it happens.
Yes.
Well, press the right buttons and it will happen.
Yeah.
But that's how all of us will be like that on occasion.
Yeah. Well, that's what's good, like, about my channel and stuff and talking to people, because I get to practice wording things instead of being so abrasive. I get to
It's
practice.
amazing what a little bit of taking a little bit of time to think, how can I word this in a way that makes it easier to hear?
Yeah. Well, look, okay, validate what they're going through, and then talk about, what I believe is the cause, right? Or the root cause or whatever.
But also be open to their story about what the cause is.
Well, I mean, when they're, making a comment, so they're putting all of their, they're talking about their stuff or whatever.
You know, I love to say sometimes is the story I'm telling myself. So like the story I'm telling, I know I do this because I'll be messy or I'll be disorganized or I'll do something and I'm annoyed at myself. And then my partner will say something like, oh gosh, the kitchen's a bit of a mess. To him, that may actually be a neutral statement. It's a statement of fact. And I will think, he thinks I have made the kitchen a mess and he is pissed off with me because, in fact, I am pissed off at myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I will sometimes say to him, and I'm getting a bit like, oh, yeah, like you don't have to put it like that. I mean, it's not like I do nothing all day. I will say, the story I'm telling myself is that you're really pissed off at me about the kitchen. To what extent are you pissed off with me? And he'll be like, the kitchen's a mess. I just want to clean it up. I don't really care enough to be pissed off with anyone. I'm like, okay, well then we're cool. We're cool. We can deal with a messy kitchen without having to deal with me feeling criticized because I'm criticizing myself.
I wonder with the criticizing yourself part, when people are having a difficult time pleasing the difficult person that doesn't want to communicate, right? Or they can't be vulnerable to communicate and feel their feelings and whatever. The other person is they are being very critical of themselves, thinking that there is something that I can do. I can fix this. There is something to make this other person change. And I think that if they got rid of that story or narrative, that's going to free them from all that fucking anxiety too. I mean, just like with a cheater, you cannot make that person stop cheating no matter how many times you catch them in their fucking phone or whatever, and you are giving yourself, you think that you have all this power over somebody else, and you only have power over yourself. You get to make a decision of how you can react and how you can, you have the power to take off. If you've been deceived over and over again, you see the pattern, you see that this person, is unable to correct any bad behavior or want to. And, they keep trying to, that's where they become very grandiose and arrogant and right?
Yeah.
Stand on that shit. Come on. Tell them, Dr. Ruth.
But I think this is where there's a lack of emotional boundaries because it's also a lack of being able to be like, actually, some of this is their responsibility. It's not mine.
Yes.
And you can't take responsibility for someone else's drinking, cheating. Those are things that belong to that other person.
Or anger.
Because
if they're going to be angry with you all the time and you start to shut down and everything, it's like you've already told them, do not yell at me, please. I'm going to leave if you yell at me.
Yeah.
And they keep fucking doing it and they're not taking control over their shit. And in that one book, Why Does He Do That? The dudes in that book are like, I can't control myself. Shut up.
But that's also incredibly victim-y. I'm the victim of my anger and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's
Yes.
like, you see this, that one, that's actually incredibly narcissistic. That goes along with like the most pathological narcissism and psychopathy. I can't help it.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest victim. I can't help but lose my temper or drink. And you see it as well. It's really interesting because I did an interview ages ago. Well, ages ago, it's like a couple of years ago, with David Lay. And he wrote the book, The Myth of Sex Addiction. And he's basically arguing, and I think he's onto something, that essentially sex addiction, he doesn't see it as a real disorder because sex isn't addictive. It's not an addictive substance in the way that alcohol or substances are. But he's like, when people engage in cheating behavior or sexual behavior that is harmful to other people, that's exploitative in some way, then I'm a sex addict is essentially saying, I don't have responsibility and I can't help myself.
Does it have to do with like
Or it's me.
dopamine or some shit? So they're just like,
There are certainly people who are more stimulation seeking than others.
yeah. So
And
that's what it is, right? It's, I need this
yeah.
chemical high, but with any chemical high, it's like you have the power to stop. It's just like with me, I drank last weekend, but I went for a couple months and I was just so overwhelmed with all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking think right now. And it was just so overwhelming. I'm like, I don't fucking care. And I went and got booze, and I was like, I feel fucking great, the thing. But, so I'm only using this example as in I made a choice. Now that I have all these overwhelming things going, but nobody's got a gun to my head saying,
You
go.
made the choice. And
Huh?
in some way, but yeah, you made a choice.
Yeah.
You're not chemically dependent on alcohol. You made a choice.
Yeah.
And, and I think it's where I think it's actually really not so helpful to frame things as an illness.
Right.
As opposed to, there were other options available to you.
Yes. Well,
And
yeah. Well, that's why in this
choice
book they call it a disease. I think that's fucking retarded. But because it's learned behaviors, this is our habit that was put into our head and made us this. Just like when you get into narcissistic relationships and being around us and our way of thinking, and we are pulling you into that way of thinking, behaving the way we want you to behave. And the longer you're in a relationship with us, the more you're going to be trained to react in a certain way or behave in a certain way from that training. And why your brains are all fucking scrambled eggs and shit while you're in a relationship, and then they're all fucked up when you get out of the relationship. Right?
Potentially, but also
I've heard that there's neurological things going on when you're in that type of relationship.
there's neurological things going on in any relationship.
Okay.
I mean, there is a bit of a story. It's like, if you experience if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you're going to come out with brain damage. It's like, no, right? But but there is there's always neurological correlates to any emotion or human behavior, right? But I certainly think you can be conditioned. If you're really used to being around someone who demands your constant affection or who neglects your needs or who punishes you for showing emotions, you will shift in your behaviors. And sometimes there's a need to make a deliberate shift in a different direction. And sometimes shifting the behavior in a different direction actually begins to shift the feeling.
And it's very uncomfortable to change these behaviors. It's
It is at first, but then it's like learning a new. The way I often just will say to people I work with is like, if you learn a musical instrument, you have to learn scales, right? And it's boring, and it's forced, and it doesn't feel natural. And the first time you sit down to play a beautiful piece of music, it sounds like shit, right? That's the same way. If you're going to change your patterns in relationships, you're going to need to like do the relationship scales. You may need to kind of use a self-help book and kind of go through these. This is the pattern I'm going to go to. That's your scales. Yeah. But with time, with practice, you begin to it becomes more natural. Then you can improvise. Then you can make the music by yourself, and it actually sounds good.
I think I'm overwhelmed, but with all my thoughts. But people who are in these relationships, they're not going to get a good response if you try to tell them that they're being bad. You're not treating me right. I mean, well, like you said before, that if they do get a negative response, then you know that this is not going to work out, you know, so you do know. And then they have to take responsibility for themselves to remove themselves after trying to.
It really depends. Sometimes I have seen it. I wouldn't say it happens often, but I have certainly seen that when someone holds the other person's foot to the fire, and it's like, I'm really serious, this relationship will end. Sometimes the more narcissistic person, it's enough of a wake-up call that they may begin to adjust some of their behavior. I don't think it's common.
Yeah, because I would be like, leave.
Yeah. But then I think you have to, and it's easy to say it but I think people are in different situations, you know, like socially, culturally, financially, with kids, you know, sometimes it's not a matter of stay or leave, you know, it isn't as easy for some people to leave as it is for others, it isn't as possible for some. But I think I do think you have to be willing to think, what will you tolerate?
Yeah. And you have to be very careful when you're leaving these types of relationships if you're with a very angry human.
Sometimes you have to get the police involved.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes you do.
Okay, so how symptoms sabotage our lives. So these are negative control. We give ourselves permission to determine someone else's reality for our own comfort. So I do this.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's what people with these codependent traits do too. They are they're saying, you know, act, treat me, but they're not. What's the difference between telling somebody how to act as compared to boundaries for yourself? Because
that's the difference. So
yeah.
You have to not drink, be polite, be nice to me, da, 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 is different to you may or may not decide to drink. That is your choice. But if you drink, I am going to be in another room. I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to go somewhere else for the night. That's for you.
Mm-hmm.
You may decide to yell at me. If you do, I'm going to leave the room. We can come back to this conversation when you can speak to me calmly. That's a much more healthy way to set a boundary.
Yes.
And those are the behavioral boundaries. Those are more what you will and won't tolerate.
Yes. And it's one thing is when you're going to, so you're not shutting down and being like, I'm not talking to you. Period. That, you know, that's not a boundary. I'm not talking to you at all. You know, if somebody's in a heated, you know, you're saying, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this when we're calm, instead of, I'm not talking about this at all because you are, yelling and getting heated at me. Because I've heard stories, this hasn't happened to me, but I've heard stories to where one person walks away because they don't want to be yelled at and shit. And so they fucking walk away, or they don't want to be confronted with something that maybe the other person does not like or whatever. Or I don't know if there's a lecture going on or a belittling and you have to, a negative controlling behavior going, but the person, walks away and the other person's chasing them around the fucking house. Like, you don't get to have boundaries. You do not get space. We're talking about this now type thing. And they're chasing them around. That's fucking bad too.
Yeah. And then maybe you have to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Leave the fucking house.
Yeah.
But that can also be a training to where I'm going to leave the house. Anytime you bring anything up to me, I'm going to abandon you. It's fucked up, Dr. Ruth.
But that's the interpretation of it. And I think it's really helpful to have conversations about these things when both people are relatively calm and relatively willing to at least hear what the other person is saying and not immediately see the worst. So you kind of say to the person, when that's going on, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave the house, not because I'm abandoning you, but because I just don't want to repeat this pattern. It's not good for either of us.
Yeah.
So
I've done that.
Yeah. Will it work? Will it not work? I don't know. And it really depends on how much flexibility there can be in the relationship and how much each party's willing to tolerate the discomfort of creating those changes.
Yeah, I have had discussions with a partner when there was no conflict to say, when there is, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then when I did go on a walk, and I'm like, I'm going to go on a walk or whatever. And then I texted him when I was on my walk and I said, I'm just walking down to the corner store, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm coming right back. And so I wanted to reassure him that I'm not walking down to my car to fucking drive home and go away, and abandon the whole fucking thing. It's like, I'm going for a walk and I'm going to come back. And I let him know that, so, so I did that good. I did that good one. Let me see. Resentment. We have a need to get even. Yes. Wait, hold on. I'm not doing. We have a need to get even or punish someone for perceived blows to our self-esteem that causes shame about ourselves. Yes, I have this problem. And it just, because I never knew any of these core issues, right? I didn't know why I was doing these things. It was just so natural and normal for me to, feel these things, and it happens right away,
It's fast.
Yeah. So, so let's take it from not my side, but somebody else's side. They're going to caregive that they believe that they're being caregiving and people pleasing. They don't see their negative controlling behaviors. They don't see that shit. And then it goes straight from them thinking that they're grade A supply to resentment. They resent because the other person isn't changing their behaviors or not changing their behaviors, being grateful or following the rules of what they want, love me. I'm doing all this shit for you. And a lot of the times, and I've noticed this about myself, the overdoing of stuff, they don't even ask for it. They're not even asking for, all this extra shit that, I would be doing to get them to see me as the greatest gift, that God's created, And then if they don't behave, then I'm going to resent them. So people who are on the, narcissist, like when I'm being the person who's not putting in effort in the relationship, and then my partner is having resentments towards everything that they're doing or whatever. And it's because I'm used to you doing shit all the time. I'm used to it. Why am I going to tell you to stop? Stop catering to my every fucking need, so I can be held accountable to do my own shit. No fucking way. There's no way I'm going to do that. You already conditioned me to be entitled to this shit, And if I am becoming lazy in the relationship and you don't fucking dig it and you try to talk to me about it and I don't want to meet you halfway, then you have the power to go. If I'm just like, no, just like when my ex-husband was like, let's get marriage counseling. And I'm like, fuck you, you get marriage counseling. You go get counseling. I'm not doing it. We got divorced right after that. So it was like, because I don't want to. I don't want to fix anything. You're the broken one. I'm fucking doing, no.
Yeah. But this is the thing, because actually what I would say is to your ex-husband, you held out the invitation. You said, we got some stuff in our relationship and I want us to work through it together. Are you willing to come to marital counseling with me to do that? She's told you the answer.
Yeah. And that's why we broke up soon after that, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm done.
Yeah.
And also, one thing that, number one, I didn't want to be shamed in marriage counseling. Number two, because I didn't want to be painted the bad guy, and then I felt like I'm already sick of this whole fucking marriage thing. When it got to the end, I was sick of it. And so I didn't want to repair anything anymore. I've already been with this dude for 25 years. I'm fucking over it, all this shit. My kids were my whole life, and now they're big and they don't even fucking need me, And I'm just like, and now I'm stuck with just you. I don't want to sound mean and everything. And it's not all black and white, like he's the devil and fucking whatever, I now see all the gray, part and stuff. But, I'm just like, when I met this man, it's because I had a little son and then I wanted him to have a good father figure. And I did pick him because I thought he was fucking great, And we were working at the same place. It's not like he was a millionaire and shit. And I'm just, I was just like, I like, his military way and everything. And he had OCD. So everything is just so, and I'm like this and he's like this. And I'm like, yeah, I want that. I need that in my life, and I want that for my son. So I did want to pick, I did think that he was, going to be a good, person. For me and my child, but when the kids are grown and they were my whole purpose. I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Okay, I'm in my fucking 40s and I'm like, I do not know what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm going to blame you for my unhappiness. And I don't want another third party telling me that I need to stay in this fucking shithole that I don't want to be in because of my own mindset, or whatever. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been repairable if I was in that mindset.
That's the anxiety about being exposed and being ashamed and being able to acknowledge maybe some of what I do isn't so great.
Yeah, I was not in that headspace.
And
I
I
was
also think there's a sort of tendency to almost think that um, couples therapy is going to be, well, this bit's your fault and this bit's your fault, and you're both kind of the shit. So, be a bit kinder to each other. But it's not really.
right. I also knew that I knew that I could play the victim. I
Mm-hmm.
was very aware that I was going to, number one, I'm a woman. I know I have female privilege in this shit. Number two, I could just sit there and not be combative. I know how to fucking manipulate to get what I want. And that he's the alcoholic, mean, domineering fucking man. And I'm just like, and I can be like, I had an emotional affair because, and I could blame him. I knew I could do all this shit. And I'm like, I don't even want to fucking go through it because it's going to be a lie. The whole fucking thing's going to be just this fiasco. And I'm not going to take any responsibility. So why even go through it? Because I was not in any headspace of, nothing. I mean, I already had one foot out the door. I was like, you're smothering me. You're yelling at me all the time. I even pulled out a gun and put it to my head. And he said, you won't do it. And I go, I know. And I put it down. It was that bad. It was that bad. So I was ready to get the fuck out, So hopefully he's fucking stoked. I'm glad to be alone. I hope he's fucking happy. He's remarried, so yay. Hopefully everything's going on good with him. Hopefully he has somebody that likes his smothering or smothers him.
Yeah, but you know what? If he has someone who's different, he may become less smothering.
No, I know he will, because the people who he dated before me were different than me.
Yeah.
He dated somebody who was emotionally dysregulated. He also dated another woman who was an alcoholic who laid hands on him. I didn't know this until almost the end of our marriage, that a woman laid hands on him. I couldn't fucking believe it. And I'm like, you didn't kill her? What? But so I knew and so I'm like, because I'm totally different. So he has all this chaos everywhere. And I didn't see myself as chaos at all, because I'm just cold and dismissive. So
you may have been a more stable one.
yeah.
I mean, dismissive, but stable.
Yeah. Well, I was, I don't know if this is me being biased towards wives, but, us being the emotional support system of the family, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do usually, because we were more traditional, household. So I was take care of the house, take care of the kids. I had to take care of his emotional needs. I had to take care of everybody, and nobody's taking care of me, but I like it that way, right? I'm taking care of he brings home the check. I take care of the bills. I say what we can and cannot buy. All big purchases go through me. So I got to fucking have control over the whole family, and I loved it.
There's a security in that.
Yeah.
And without any emotional vulnerability.
Yeah, I didn't have that.
You're basically the CEO.
Yes.
Buck stops with me.
Yes. Well, I say marriage is a business, because all that romantic shit dies, and love is supposed to remain, where you have respect for your partner, and you care about your partner and all this other shit, right? But you're not having all that, well, my husband's home. Yay, yay, it's like, oh, the fourth kid has arrived, great.
Yeah, but when you're there, you're also kind of in a place of contempt.
Yes.
The fourth child, he's another burden on me. He's another
Emotionally,
responsibility
yes.
that I have to take care of.
Mm-hmm. And what I could not fucking believe is he told me that he had anxiety coming home. I was just like, okay, mask up. He's home. Put on the mask. Hi. Hi. And if I didn't greet him with happiness, then he'd be in a bad mood.
But there's a reciprocity going on between you and him. So he comes home and he's like, you've got to greet me with happiness or I'm going to feel unappreciated, unloved, and then I'm going to get pouty and then you're going to get pissed. So you're kind of both in a bind because you either put on your smiley face and do something fake, or you're quite contemptuous of him because, like, it's my fourth child who's come to add another burden to the family.
Yeah. Well, both. I felt like I was fake the whole time,
Yeah.
It's not his fault though. I can't be vulnerable. I cannot share nothing. So it's not his fault, but he's the receptacle.
Yeah. But he's joined that because there's something in him that maybe is seeking to rescue a woman, to be the provider.
In the beginning, yeah.
And then it's the love me.
Yes.
Appreciate me. And if, but then he's also struggling because he's with women who are unstable. He's with someone who's assaulted him and he isn't able to keep himself safe from that.
Well, I think
going on there.
Well, yeah. And he has his own, childhood trauma stuff. We live on the same, right next door to his parents, the domineering father figure, and he has to be perfect all the time. And so he feels like he's fake too.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Yeah, and do you know what as well? He's probably wanting the reassurance from you that he's doing a good enough job.
Yeah. Well, that's why I would jump up and down and clap my hands when he'd bring home his paycheck. I'd be like, yeah. And he always felt good about that. He would always say all the time that he feels fucking good, that he can be a good provider for the family. And I never shit on him for that. I was always like, yeah, you're fucking great. Yay. Good job. But, when it comes to all those, he wouldn't be able to fix that shit. So he can't rescue me from this. I resent him for wanting me to be all cuddly and sweet and, in love with him. I can't do that. So he's going to resent me for that and, either get angry or overly pouty or whatever. But it's funny. People think, oh, well, you have this big revelation about all this stuff. Would you ever go back? And if my ex-husband wasn't married, no, I would not go back. That fucking chapter is closed. I would not go back to that shit. No. It's almost like.
Also, just because you understand something about it doesn't mean you won't repeat it.
Yes.
I guarantee you'll repeat it.
Yeah. Well, the whole dynamic was, in the beginning, starting a family and you're young, and he did save me from my old life and he loved that. He loved it, and creating a family. We did the whole fucking bullshit. It's done. It's over. It's like, this is the reason why I got into this relationship. Now he wants somebody to retire with and just be him. And I'm not a you and me, this, I'm not a this. And so it's like, I just hate it. So no, what he needs is still not who I am. even though I
I
understand.
think, I often will say this to people as well, is that sometimes the ability to change a pattern in a relationship is going to be much easier or harder depending on the other party in the relationship. And that works both ways.
Yes.
That really does work both ways, because I think often there is an attraction to the partner who is most going to replicate those old patterns. And for both of you, it can be better off with someone else.
Yes. I agree.
Do you want to look at some of the comments?
No.
What they're saying.
No, we will. What time is it? Are you getting tired?
It is 11:15 p.m.
Okay.
for me.
We got so much shit. Okay. Fine. Fine, doctor. All right. Do you have anyone that you see that you want? You want me just to click on what I
I'm
want?
gonna have to. I'm so old. I need different glasses now to read.
Okay. Let me put this one up. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Can
So
you read it?
boundaries are also for us not to confine the other person. It's not they cross lines for their behavior, but rather we hold ourselves accountable when we aren't being treated the way we want. Yeah. But I think what you were talking about as well goes a little deeper than that, because I think that's talking very much about behavioral boundaries. Like, these are the behaviors I will and won't accept.
Right.
But I think there's something a bit deeper in what you were talking about around emotional boundaries, which is like, you can have your feelings and I don't have to be overwhelmed by them. Like, I can tolerate you can be angry at me. I can tolerate that you are upset with me without having to jump to defend myself or to deny it or to dismiss it or to agree with it.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And also it's like being able to be open to it without overly absorbing it. You think,
Yeah.
like, I often think about little kids because they will say the most outrageous things to their parent, like, and it will swing within the same day. It'll be like, I hate you. You're the worst mommy in the world. Like, you never give me anything. You never give me anything. It's like, no, I just said no once, but you get to be angry. And then later it's like, I love you so much, mommy. You're the best mommy in the whole world. And it's like, yeah, probably don't take that too seriously either.
Right. Yeah.
Nice it is.
I tell other people, don't take things personally. But I always do,
Yeah.
don't take it
It's
personally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's a need to be able to be open and welcoming of the other person's relationship without having to absorb it. And vice versa. That you can express your emotions and your feelings to them, but not expect them to absorb it or have to agree with you. Or have to rest.
You agree. Come on.
I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, that's going to take a lot of practice. And then if you're with somebody who isn't going to see, one thing that triggers the fuck out of me is when somebody says, let's just agree to disagree. I feel dismissed when people say that. It's like, you just can't have that. You refuse to see my perspective. And so, let's just, it's like, let's just shut the door on that and never talk about it again.
Do you know that sometimes can be helpful, depending on if you disagree about the death penalty and you get really wound up about it. Well, sometimes, unless you're having to make that decision in your own home, maybe you don't need to discuss it. Maybe you can just let that one be. But if it's about something that's really deep for you, yeah, you can have differences of perspective, but I think there's a need to have empathy for each other's perspective.
And okay, well, I can do the cognitive empathy thing.
But you can, yeah. That's like a great place to start, to be able to say, let me understand in depth your perspective and what you feel as best I can without having to make you agree with me or argue with you.
Yeah, I would have to
Otherwise,
practice.
no. That, and it does, because you're like, you but
Yeah.
that's wrong. But that's, but to make yourself is a good discipline, actually, to learn how to listen to what someone has to say without disagreeing with them,
Mm-hmm.
even when you think they're wrong. In fact, especially when you think they're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when I meet somebody new and they're doing that, and oh God, and it's almost like a little kid who's nagging at you the whole fucking time, for you to give in. Just be like, okay, I see, just to shut them the fuck up, because they won't stop trying to, say their side or whatever. And, and I'm just like, okay, just shut up, and then you're not connecting either, Anyway, all right. I want to be doing well, but I feel really down because I have been ghosted for so long, as well as feeling abandoned by friends. So you're isolating yourself. Ghosted for so long. So you gave your power away to somebody ghosting you instead of saying, I'm done. I'm not going to be with somebody who can abandon me on a whim, and you have to tell yourself that this is over, because ghosted means they can show back up anytime they want and haunt your fucking life. And you have to be able to say, you don't get to come back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Them leaving you, they've made their fucking choice. Anyways, I think that if you take your power back when you say, I'm done with you, because I'm not going to let this happen to me anymore.
Ghosting is brutal, though.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't give you the dignity of someone saying, hey,
no closure.
Continue. And to give you the certainty to just disappear and leave you. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what I've done. That is harsh. That is a difficult thing to go through. But yeah, I also think at some point you need to make the decision that, okay, they're gone. But if they come back, the answer isn't like, oh yeah, I want to hear your side. Tell me what was going on for you. Why did you disappear? The answer is bye.
And sometimes they come back and you want to discuss it and they don't. So they're not going to give you closure anyway. And they're going to repeat the behavior. I have seen that too.
Or they come back and you say, well, I'm not going to confront the issues because I don't want you to ghost me again.
Yes. And then you're walking on eggshells, right?
And then you're walking on eggshells. Yeah.
Yes. And feeling abandoned by your friends, if you're talking about your issue with this person over and over again, can you talk about that real quick, Dr. Ruth? Because not saying this is what you're doing, but this comes up all the time where you're talking about your trauma with the partner to your friends, and your friends don't want to fucking hear it anymore because you're not making it, you're not changing you're not making a choice.
Yeah. I think what you're doing, often for people who are doing that on repeat. So, I'm a big believer in seeking support of other people during a breakup. I think that's actually really protective. And, for friends to be supportive and for friends to, validate where you're coming from. And even have a good old pitching session about what an asshole he was and call him a narcissist, because we've all done that, right? But but there comes a point where that's counterproductive. And actually what you're doing is ruminating out loud. And yet it's tiring because there's no end in sight.
Right.
There isn't the end point where you go, yeah, so screw him. Let's go and have a girls' night. Let's all go out, or, whatever it is. You're actually just going over and over and over. and there's no shift in your thinking, and there's also for you, there isn't a reestablishment of friendships or community outside of that relationship that you've lost. And so what I suggest, and it's pretty brutal. So I will suggest to people, you need to put it on the back burner. Actually, you do, because you need to build relationships with friends that are based on you and your friends, not on your ex-partner. And sometimes, it depends on how close people are to their friends and how much open they're going to be. But you can't even say to your friend, I don't want to keep talking about this, but I'm so driven to it. And let yourself do it, but put a time limit on it. So even your friends sets the timer and they're like, you got 10 minutes, go. Okay, 10 minutes is up. Now we're going to talk about something else. But to give yourself that shift so you're actually focusing on some other things.
Is it okay for a good boundary if the person who is ruminating out loud all the time, and isn't it encroaching on your friend because you won't stop?
It's difficult to boundaries here because sometimes I think there's a need to talk through some of those issues with someone else, and there's a need to receive that kind of support. And it kind of depends a little bit who I'm talking to, because when I work with people who never tell a single soul what's going on in their relationship, and their friends kind of know something's up, but they don't know, that person is probably good for them to talk to their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas someone who's just dwelling on it, going over and over and over and over and over, never moving on, for them, it's probably good for them to turn their attention to talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why it's, I think, so difficult to give off the peg advice. You kind of have to custom it to the person and the situation that they're in. So I'm never going to say, oh, you shouldn't talk to your friends about your ex, because sometimes you need to. Sometimes you need to vent. Sometimes you need that other person's perspective to go, no, that really wasn't right. Or, or to deal with the shame. Like when you're like, oh, they cheated on me, there's something so repulsive about me, to have a friend witness that and say, nah, it's not about you. They cheated. That was their choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because people will call me and say, my friends are sick of me talking about this. And you know what I'm, going through. I'm like, yes, you call me. I love it. Fucking talk to me all day long. But like I had my mother for 2 years talk about the same thing on repeat. It was like you could just press play and it would be the same story of I'm a victim of this, that, and the other thing for 2 years, So I think like, I can't fucking talk to you anymore because this is it. This is your whole life is just this story. That's it,
You need to write a different story.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to kind of force yourself to put pen to paper and not write the same old story.
Yeah.
And all right. Yeah, I would challenge, if that's the kind of situation, I would challenge you to say, go spend time with your friends and deliberately don't talk about that. Talk about anything else and see how it feels, because often it's a bit of a relief.
Yeah. Well, fucking just journal it, because then you get it out of your head.
That can be ruminating. Even that can be like, I'm going to spend hours.
You get it out of your head.
You know what I would say? Sometimes there's a real good space for healthy distraction.
All right, listen to Dr. Ruth. Distract yourself, God damn it.
Go and do something that's absorbing and interesting. Get stuck into like some gnarly true crime stuff. Really, go and do something that kind of just sucks you in, because it gives you need that break, and you need to realize there's more to you than that relationship. And if the only thing showing up in your friendship is the ruminating about that relationship, it will kill the friendship.
Yes.
Well, it's suffocating for your friend. It's suffocating for you. You're not showing up. You're not there. And maybe that's the question. Are you showing up really as your whole self, or are you just ruminating out loud?
Yes, because I know that I did that one time in my life. And then my friend had to tell me, it's like, you only care about yours. You never asked me about me. And I was not even aware.
Yeah.
I was like, because I was just so absorbed in my own shit. And then my sister would do that to me too. And I'm like, you only called a bitch about your problems. You never asked me how I'm doing, you know? And so she did change her behavior or whatever, but this guy was always falling with her too. All right. I think it's one of the most prevailing problems in society and is a lot more than some people who expect that everybody thinks like they do. Well, I do. That's why I think people are trying to fuck me over. All right.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh, don't say that. All right. What else? I feel really terrible about something, and I feel as though many people would invalidate how I feel elsewhere because they think that I'm not supposed to feel that way. Oh, I hate that. Don't feel that way. Isn't that like them trying to, they don't want, or feelings of others are uncomfortable. And so they tell you not to feel a specific.
Sometimes, or that there's a sort of, yeah, maybe there's a difficulty in recognizing just how extreme the situation has been and how extreme your emotional reaction is to it.
Mhm.
And sometimes your reaction is disproportionate.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes
Well,
it's a reflection of, you know, you your reaction is to it because it's maybe coming from somewhere other than the situation. It may be coming from past shit. Your reaction to someone in the present is way too big.
or if somebody is sad or depressed or feeling, talking shit about themselves,
Mm.
and then, the other person will be like, you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't. It's like, can I feel my fucking feelings? Can I? All right. Many don't understand these complex dynamics, and yes, the response can be invalidating and cruel. Absolutely. I feel horrendously awful by the fact that I don't have enough time spent with people of desired status, and I suspect as though many people elsewhere would invalidate me for feeling that. Did you get that one?
Is it that you're feeling that you want to spend time with people that you perceive to be of a certain status? And then you kind of know other people would think that was a bit of a shitty attitude or see that as somehow not very nice.
That is very true. Is there any specific disorder that make people obsessed with having to be validated and spend time with people of a good status, among other things? Being validated or admired, and spend time with people of good status. That's narcissistic. That's being with, you want to be,
It's
you
very
only,
hierarchical.
you want to hang out with, high stat. That's narcissistic. If you want to be admired, not validated. I mean, everybody wants their feelings validated, but that's not part of any
Yeah,
criteria.
but sometimes I think there's a need that, if you're feeling quite insecure, there's a desire to have someone else validate where you're coming from, that you're right to feel that way, to not challenge you on what you're feeling.
Maybe that's the vulnerable side of narcissism.
It can be. I mean,
Okay.
I always think it's much more helpful to understand some of the internal feelings and processes around this rather than being too quick to put a label on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that need to like, I'm not wrong to feel this way. I'm right to be angry. I'm right to be upset. And maybe actually when you go over and over and over that, it does alienate people because people don't necessarily just want to hear the same story again. And so then they maybe you get invalidating and then you get more upset because you're like, well, nobody understands me. So in some ways, that is the kind of curse of a more vulnerable narcissistic process.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like perpetual victim. I'm a victim. Validate all the pain that I'm going through. If you're obsessed with that, I mean, I'm obsessed with telling my story of victimhood and wanting my feelings validated. Am I black and white thinking this shit? All right. I don't fucking know. I'm talking now. This is very helpful. Brr, brr, brr. The pouty shit is annoying. Dur, dur. Pouty. Head to the side, shoulders hang down bullshit. What? Okay, this is going to make you laugh. What? Why the fuck do narcissists stomp when they walk? I don't fucking stomp.
Do they?
What? Or why do narcissists always walk ahead? It's like, what? To me, it's either I'm taller than you, I'm walking faster, my legs are longer, I'm walking faster, or I'm not strolling. Sometimes I can feel uncomfortable walking slow with you, and that feels kind of enmeshing a little bit, It could be that reason, but people are like, it's controlling. They're trying to make me
Why does
feel
anyone stomp when they walk? Right? Maybe because they're in a bad mood. Maybe because they want to make their presence felt.
Yeah, that's toddler-ish. That's acting a child.
It's just the way they walk.
Yeah, I don't fucking stomp. That's weird.
Anyway, narcissism isn't about the walk. It's about the eyebrows. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. No, they don't. Why do narcissists hate coming home from work? Because you're a nag.
But you know what? Why does anyone hate coming home from work? Right?
Yeah, you have to figure out your dynamic.
But
Do
sometimes
they come home and you bitch and complain? Do they come home and you want to cuddle up on them and they don't want to? Do you even give them any space when they walk through the fucking door?
But you know what else is common? Some narcissists go to work and they're really good at work. They're high performers. They're very successful. So in work, they get constant praise and admiration and validation, and they feel great, and everything's shiny and sparkly in work. And, if they're in a really, if they're really high up, someone else comes and they can't do enough for them, and someone will bring them, they'll bring them coffee. They'll ask if there's anything else they can do for you. And then they come home and their partner isn't so accommodating.
Yeah.
Or so impressed.
Yeah. I was like that when my kids were younger and I was at work, because it's like when I stopped going to work, I was depressed as shit. Because I didn't get that. Everything that you were saying, I didn't get that. It was just me and little people, that I had to cater to all the time. And so I wasn't getting any fucking no praise, no nothing.
And, and there's a degree to which I think that is fairly normal in a lot of relationships, and especially if you have young kids. Because what do you get when you come home and you have young kids? Like, your partner's frazzled, the house is a mess. Your partner's just like, okay, now I get to hand them over to you. It's my time to have a break, because you've been having a great time at work all day, haven't you? You love it there. It's your holiday camp. So now you look after the kids and I'm going to have my holiday camp.
Yeah.
And actually, everybody's feeling really unappreciated. So I would be very unsurprised if there was something like that going on around someone hating coming home from work.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Narcissists have a bad day every day. That has to be the definition of misery. I don't have a bad day every day. I'm just not excited and overjoyed. I'm just there, you know?
I do like that comment. That one. It's a hard knock life.
It's very black and white.
Have you seen it? There's a really funny comment.
Where?
It's by Shannon. 10:39 p.m. It's a hard knock life.
10:39?
That's for money. It's a hard knock life for us.
2:39?
No. Oh yeah, 10:39 is my time. It's underneath where Jay Willie series says, "Thanks, I appreciate it." I'm never going to be able to listen to that song again. Not that I often listen to. That is vulnerable narcissism, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
My life is so hard.
Narcissists intentionally insert themselves into conflict. Fucking, it's annoying, and they want you to take a ride down conflict road with them. And if you don't, then now y'all have conflict. Yeah, well, that's the thing I was talking about with Tim Fletcher's video last night about chaos. The people who are drawn to chaos. Now, I grew up in chaos, but I don't want fucking chaos around me. This is why I'm very controlling about my environment. I'm trying to create peace. May not be peaceful for you, motherfucker, but I want peace. But but I mean, like my mom, she has borderline flavor to her, and everything's chaos, and she's always creating chaos where there is none. Gossiping about others, so she feeds off of chaos of other people's lives. And then she takes on the emotional distress of other people and creating chaos in her life, you know? And then, it's just fucking crazy town. No fucking way do I want that. This is why I will never date another fucking borderline, because I can't deal with the constant chaos. So would that be, is that why they say like vulnerable presenting narcissistic people can mirror borderline flavory stuff with that?
Or are these processes?
I know you don't like labels, just say it.
Because these processes can be very similar, right? And because the comorbidity, the number of people who have borderline who will also meet at least some of the criteria for narcissistic personality is really, really high.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of think these are often all patterns that we can all engage in to some extent, some of the time. And for some people, they're so extreme that you're going to meet criteria to be diagnosed with a personality disorder. But I tend to think there's similarities.
Well, and complex PTSD, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
and it's also like, because a lot of these patterns have come from really traumatic experiences. And I don't mean traumatic experiences as in like, I didn't get my way, because I think everyone's calling everything trauma now. But I mean, really significant physical abuse, severe neglect, sexual abuse, those things will color the relationship patterns that you find yourself in.
Yes. Well, that's why it's so important that you research your past. Instead of focusing on only your person, you should be focusing on your past, your patterns, and how you're relating to other people. Because if I got to do this shit, so does everybody else. If I got to dig through my past and find out where I need to fix, you got to do that shit too. It's not just the narcissist. they got me in their web because of love bombing, and that's why I'm stuck. Are you fucking high? Are you fucking smoking the doob this fucking big? That is so stupid. So fucking dumb. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment.
No, but I think you're right in that sometimes there is a tendency to think so much about I am helpless in the face of a narcissist, and it makes people incredibly anxious to get into new relationships. And you know what else? It makes them really vulnerable to love bombing, because it's like, I can't do anything because I want to be certain, and I'm really, really scared to get involved with someone. And then someone comes along and they sweep you off your feet and they promise you everything you thought you ever wanted. And often it's not deliberate. They have a fantasy about having the perfect relationship too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they go together, and you create a little love bomby fantasy world together.
And what's hilarious, it's hilarious because in reality, with a normal reality, that fantasy doesn't fucking last, you know? I mean, that's why when you get married, they call it the honeymoon. You know, you're on a fucking honeymoon, and and then you see that it's work. Marriage is actually a fucking job that you're taking, your career that you're taking.
There's a normal side to which we all idealize our partners. Yes. And there's even like research that would suggest that a little bit of idealization is not a bad thing for a relationship, because kind of keeps you positive about the other person.
Yeah. And one time I said, I idealize you to my partner, and he's like, don't do that. And I was just like, what the fuck? You want me to hate you?
There were things in between.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, God, can't I adore you? A love doctor said that adoring your partner is what loving your partner is. Adoring them, having things that are about them. See, with narcissistic people, they usually don't look for, they look for what you can do for them, what you're giving to me. And I don't even see you really. It's what can you provide for me? And, when you actually look at all the cute nuances of your partner, and all the things that are about them that you like, just them being them, things that you like about them, not their looks, not their job, not, none of that shit, or even them being charismatic, because that can be fake as shit. But, I like the way that they, or the way that they comb their hair, just watching them groom, or the way that they get angry when they lose a game or something. Just, it makes you smile. It's cute the way that they act, a certain way and stuff like that.
Like the normal, ordinary things that you're attracted to in someone.
I know, but when I get into a relationship, first off, it's like, okay, job interview. What can you provide, me type
How
thing.
romantic.
Yeah, it's not, but, and then I love the way you treat me. That's where I get confused, It's like, why do you love, or if my partner was like, why do you love me? And then it would be a list of all the things that you do for me and how you love to do these things for me, instead of saying, I love the way that your mind works when you dissect a book and when you really consume something. I love how you, the way you treat your children. I love the way that, you take care of your plants. I love the way how, you're very meticulous about, the way that you do this, that, and the other thing. I love the way that you do that little silly dance. I love the way that you, shit like that, and you really, and I never did that until my last relationship. I would just sit there and just watch all these little things. And it was very new for me. you know, to be like, oh, I love the way that you fucking, and then the psychopathic stare. It's like, can't I fucking adore you? I mean, what? You know, why does it always have to be evil? You know, why am I always fucking a demon? Everything I do is
But that is just like over scrutinizing and over pathologizing sometimes as well.
yes. And you know what the black eyes are, you little stinkers? I looked it up. It's either fear or excitement. So when you're in fear, your eyes dilate so you can see better. It's a total animal response. Or excitement, and that can go along with, you know, you're getting excited when you're angry. You're, you know, whatever. Yeah. I've only had one person say I have black eyes. I was so fucking raged, pissed. And it was just a picture that I took after being so fucking angry. And I sent a selfie showing that I'm fucking mad. And he's like, your eyes are black. That's the only time anybody's ever said that. But I was fucking pissed. I'm angry. You know, it's not because I got a fucking demon. I'm fighting demons, but, you know, I'm not a demon. Although if you want to fear me that I am a demon, I'm cool with that too. I mean, then you're not going to fuck with me, right? So all these people like on victim channels and stuff, they're like, evil, evil. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's fine. Don't fuck with me. If you're going to be afraid of me, then cool. Don't fuck with me. If that's, you're giving your power away. They are giving their power away, saying they owe it. It's like, you're never going to work on your shit. You're always going to attract the same type of people. You're never going to grow ever. And you're going to be a victim forever. And that doesn't mean that I'm not being abusive to you and that you can wear that crown. She was abusive to me, but you have so much power that you're giving away. And I love it. I'll fucking eat that shit for days, forever. I'll eat all your fucking power. I'll suck your soul out because you're letting me, you know, it's like, thank you. Thank you. But I do know about, you know, coercive control and all of those things. And I do understand that, you know, you are trainable. I get that too. And I've been trauma bonded before, and I understand how difficult it is to leave the chaos environment because it's the pain that you know. And if you leave, you're leaving into the unknown, right? It's almost like this is why chaos is home, or abuse is home, the alcoholic is home, you know. And then when you leave that environment, it's the unknown, you know.
I always say you've got to move to a foreign country and you don't speak the language and you don't know the customs and you don't know how to behave. It feels mighty awkward.
Yes. I get really anxious when I don't receive any confirmation of me doing it right or being good enough. I will start thinking the worst of myself, and it goes really far. Any tips on that? Well, they're not doing right or not being good enough, so your person is nitpicking the shit out of you.
Well, someone with this view of themselves can be very vulnerable to a partner who's willing to nitpick the shit out of them because you don't have that inner confidence of yourself and inner recognition of your own goodness. So that there's an issue. And I think there's kind of two things. I think one is when you go seeking confirmation that you're doing it right or you're good enough, it's like reassurance seeking. It's like a black hole. You can never get enough of it. So some of it is kind of tolerating not getting that constant reassurance from someone else and just being able to relax, because it can kind of start to drive other people a bit crazy because it's just like, yeah, like you're fine. Actually, no, you are annoying me because you've asked me 10 times if you're annoying me. You know, eventually, you know, I remember doing a group therapy session when I was training, and the therapist was like, I think I sense anger in the room. And we were all just like, what the frick is this stupid person? Like, but they kept going. And eventually someone said, I am fucking angry now. And they're like, I knew it. And they're like, do you not see that you have entirely single-handedly generated this anger? And the therapist was like, no, I think you're projecting it onto me. And then someone else pointed out, no. We all fed up with being told we're angry now. It was just, but there was that you created it.
Yeah.
You know, but what I'd also say is there's maybe scope for you to do some work on yourself and how you see yourself.
Yes.
Like, where does that sense of I can only think the worst of myself come from?
Mom and dad, dude, they instill a lot of shame in you and make you feel worthless. Or the opposite spectrum, you have to be perfect, and they have that our family is better than everyone, and you have to represent that. Otherwise, you're not good enough, and you will be punished for bringing shame onto the parents.
Right, so it's actually an interesting question, because you could have a very negative view of yourself. Like, I am so contemptible, no one could ever love me. But you could also have a view of other people that essentially says other people are so demanding, they're incapable of tolerating any human flaws on my part. And it can be, you can have both. That's quite a combination, to both see yourself in a very negative light and see other people as very harsh and demanding and unforgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably scope to work on those core schemas, that sense you have of yourself and other people.
Yeah, one thing is, if you don't do anything right, stop doing it altogether. Just be like, well, then do it yourself. Like, my ex-husband used to bitch at me for doing the checkbook wrong because I'm dyslexic, and I would superimpose my numbers when he would balance. He would balance the checkbook. I would write all the bills out. Even when I would use the calculator, because I superimpose my numbers. So he would get really angry, and I would say, then do it your fucking self. Write all the bills yourself, and I won't do it anymore. And
you know, sometimes it's better.
Shut the fuck up. He shut up because he does not want to. He wants me to do it. So,
I mean, that's probably a good way to handle someone who's highly critical.
mm-hmm.
Like,
my friend, when she would cook for her husband, he would bitch about the food. And so she threw the food away in the garbage. And she's like, fine, then I ain't cooking. And he shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. He shut up. So, as long as you're not with somebody who's going to give you 5 across the eyes, you know. Are you getting tired?
Call the police.
Are you getting tired, Dr. Ruth?
I am, and I'm going to have to wrap up pretty soon because it's nearly midnight. It's like 11:30 now.
Okay, my parent and ex were abusive with those eyes. I've conquered. Is that right? I'm a true victim, but I won't play the victim in my story. I'll be the warrior, the victor, standing up for myself and giving back the negative. So if you give back, how do you feel about that? Giving equal negative energy, like meeting their energy on a negative level.
So I would question a little, I mean, because I totally see, you know, where you've come from. If you're like, actually, I have been victimized, someone has treated me in a way that's abusive, and I have a lot of time for someone who says, I'm not going to play the victim. There's more to me than this. But what I would question is, what do you mean by giving back the negative? Because what I think really, there is such a need when people have been victimized and you really want to write a new story, you want to do something, you want to shift that, to define yourself in relation to the person who perpetrated abuse. That's, even if you're defining yourself as, I have overcome them and screw them, I'm the victor. In a way, I think you can probably go a little further than that and start to build something new and better.
Well, one thing,
there's and I love this, and no political, I'm not giving any political stance, but there's where I come from, there is a mural that says, "Our revenge will be the laughter of our children." And I really like it because it's like, we're not living with hatred or defensiveness or anger or revenge or giving back the negative. We're gonna go and build something different for ourselves.
I've done a few different strategies with negative, like my ex-husband and I would be sarcastic or whatever, back and forth. But even though I could have gone further, I would pick my battles. I would let him win, you know, something. If it was a good dig, you know, and I would laugh and be like, "That's a good one," you know. Because, you know, it's not a competition. It's supposed to not be a competition of who can hurt the person the worst, you know?
Yeah, but I would say for this person, you want to think about developing a different kind of relationship with people other than your parents and ex.
Well, of course.
But that's where there is, and I think sometimes the attention can really go on, okay, I'm not going to give back, or I will give back, or I'm going to, but it's still defining yourself in relation to the person who's the perpetrator.
I saw this video of this woman screaming at her husband, screaming that because she was resentful, you know, and she was just screaming, "It's 15 years with you," and he's calm and everything. But, you know, I think that she would feel better if he matched her energy, you know, the anger. And it was pissing her off even more because she was out of control. That's why I think it's so important, especially if he was the perpetrator. Say he was, and she's just fucking sick of it. So she's reacting negatively, giving negative energy back to him, even though his negative energy wasn't yelling. It was being quiet and entitled or whatever. And he's calling her crazy. Maybe you need to be institutionalized, which is very dismissive of her feelings. So he's
that's brutal.
Yeah. But if she learned to regulate her own emotions, you know, then you take away that power from the other person, you know?
Yeah, you do. That's really good advice if you're in the relationship.
Yes.
But because I've seen this a lot with people who've been through abuse, like, I'm never going to date another narcissist. I'm not going to put up with any of that abusive bullshit ever again. I'm going to really protect my boundaries. And actually, and I'm like, you go. I wholly support you in that. But also, I don't want you to think just about what you don't want. I want you to think about what you do want. What is the thing that you want? You know, so it's like, oh, actually, I want a relationship. Yeah, so I don't want someone who bullshits. I don't want someone who's aggressive. I don't want someone who lies. Great. So what do you want? Because I want you to look for the things you want. I want a relationship where people are honest. I want a relationship where I can express my feelings. And there's sometimes a need. The survival strategies that get you through an abusive relationship and out the side are not they are not the strategies that necessarily will help you nurture a better relationship with someone else.
Exactly. Well, so, and just like we said earlier, if you are asking for your needs and they refuse, then you have your answer there. You know, you have your answer. It's like, I don't need to go down to your level and then start making TikToks about reactive abuse. You know, we don't need any more of that fucking shit.
Come on, there's so much fun.
All right.
I'll make one more because I would like to go to bed before midnight.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let me see.
It's fun. I love doing lives with you.
Oh, good. My kid's narcissistic mother. My kid's narcissistic mother has actually vocalized that she hates when people tell her that her daughter looks so much like me. When I ask her why she feels like that, she says because she pushed her out. What, out of the vajay?
I'm guessing so.
Okay. All right. I don't need reassurance. I just have a low tolerance for vindictive bullshitters. Okay.
Yeah, meet
Poor
the
pitiful me bullshitters.
non.
Poor pitiful me bullshitters. Despise them.
You've got rid of the poor, pitiful me bullshitters. So who are you welcoming?
Yeah.
What are you letting in? Think about that. Not just who are you keeping out? What are you letting in?
Yes. It's perfect. That's perfect. Yes. Because when I was dating, I was cutting off people after they were encroaching on my boundaries consistently, just over a few days. It was like, oh no,
I am all for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in
So,
the early stages of dating.
yeah. But, I was having conversations and I was gathering information and having discussions, and then you're vetting and you're seeing how they're reacting to different things, and then you're noticing a pattern. So instead of getting angry, it's all I said was I sent every single one of them a nice little closure text, just saying, I'm not going to be able to date anymore, and I hope, good luck out there. And I would give them just one reason, I think you need to find somebody who's more of an extrovert, instead of you're too controlling and you keep crossing my boundaries when I tell you no. I'm like, you need to find somebody that really wants to do the stuff you like, instead of trying to fucking push me into doing shit. I was like, yeah, you need to find somebody else. So yeah.
Nicely done.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Ruth. Thank you, Dr. Ruth.
See you soon.
Thank you for letting me, hit you up when I'm under emotional distress. Thank you. Okay.